Rams house. Welcome into a brand new episode of the Rams Report by Chat Sports, presented by Prize Picks. Today, we're breaking down some news from this weekend and the way it might affect the Los Angeles Rams draft strategy. Just in case you missed it, although we briefly discussed it on our show earlier today, where we were covering all the latest Rams news and rumors, the Bengals made a trade for defensive tackle Dexter Lawrence, and what they gave up to do it was the 10th overall pick. So the New York Giants now have two top 10 picks, and I'll tell you guys, it's not great news for your Los Angeles Rams. And here's why. So you look at this top 10 draft order, it opens New York up to go after a weapon at 5 or go after a weapon at 10, either of which could take weapons off the board for you. I think they're probably going to go one weapon, one defensive piece, whether that weapon be Jeremiah Love or a Carnell Tate or a Jordan Tyson. We've heard them connected to all of those guys in the same way we've heard the Rams connected to almost all of those guys, especially the receiver names. But it's not just New York that you've got to worry about in terms of targeting a receiver. The Cleveland Browns might want a new option for whoever's going to be their long-term quarterback, be that Shador, Dylan Gabriel, Deshaun Watson, who honestly knows? Not me, not them, nobody. Washington might want a new wide receiver. We've heard rumors recently that if Carnell Tate's available for them, they won't pass on him. The Saints could afford to add another weapon for their young quarterback in Tyler Shuck. The Kansas City Chiefs could look to add a weapon. There are a lot of teams, I think 6 teams and 7 picks, that might get used on a wide receiver in the top 10. Are every single one of them going to go wide receiver? No, not in real life. Not every single one of those picks. But you've got to be aware that any one of them absolutely could. And if enough of them do, it might put the Rams in a position where the best move for this team is to look to trade down. That, I think, is what we're going to discuss on today's show. We're going to talk about some teams that the Rams could look to make a move down with, the offers that they might get to ultimately do that. That'll be the topic of today's show right after we give a shout out to the sponsor, Prize Picks. Today's show is sponsored by Prize Picks, America's #1 sports picks app. Prize Picks is the place to go if you love daily fantasy sports or you just want to make watching sports even more exciting. Player picks are on fire right now, guys, with playoff basketball really starting to heat up and the baseball season getting going as well. There's just no better place to cash in on all that action or just make watching it even more fun than Prize Picks. All you have to do is pick 2 to 6 players and select more or less on their stat projections, including points, rebounds, assists, three-pointers, and several others across all sports. If you're more of a baseball guy, you could choose stats such as hits, home runs, and strikeouts. Prize Picks also has some really awesome social features, guys. You could follow other players, including myself or producer Mike on the app. I'm at Jackson_Durham. You can see the latest lineups I've been placing and what I've been getting after, including my lineup for tonight's action, where I'm going with the more on Donovan Mitchell, the more on Max Strus, and the more on Karl Anthony Towns. So you could tail me on this lineup, you could fade me on this lineup, whatever you do, just do it at Prize Picks. And when you download the Prize Picks app today, use code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to receive $50 in lineups. That's code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to get an extra $50 in lineups with Prize Picks. The clickable link to download the app is in the comments in the description. As always, huge shout out to Prize Picks for sponsoring today's video. We always appreciate them. Let's get back into our discussion. So here are the guys that I think, if you're the Los Angeles Rams, can make a day one impact for you. There are 3 wide receivers: Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson, and Mekhi Lemon. I think these guys are certified, absolute day one impact makers. And let me be clear, there are a number of guys that might make a day one impact for you. These 5 absolutely will. I have 100% confidence. I would stake the house on it. Every single one of these 5 guys will come in and be a day one impact maker for you. In the edge conversation, you could add David Bailey and Arvell Reese, but I just think there's a 0% chance those guys end up making it to you. So Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson, and Mekhi Lemon are realistic receiver options that could get to you. Caleb Downs on the end of the secondary. Of course, we re-signed Quentin Lake Cam Curl, but you also would have to consider that Caleb Downs is just such a good player. He would make you change your plans. I think if Caleb Downs was there for the Rams, they would draft him. They would find a role for him to come in and contribute on this defense. But I think they're primarily targeting one of these three guys. But if none of these five are there for them, I think the Rams have to look to trade down a few spots. I think you have to look to move down and then think about secondary options. That's when you start thinking about Omar Cooper. That's when you start thinking about Casey Concepcion. And you wouldn't have to go very far because I think there are going to be a number of teams interested in moving up. I think the New York Jets at 16th overall might want to move up a couple spots, grab somebody they really like. Maybe Venga Ione is sitting there for them, or Venga Wane is sitting there for them, and they want to come up and draft him. Maybe the Dallas Cowboys have somebody in mind that they want to come up for. Maybe Mansour Delane is still on the board, and they just can't afford to not add that piece at corner. Maybe the Chargers want to trade up and grab a Wane. Maybe the Browns want to trade up and grab Spencer Fano or Monroe Freeling. There are a lot of people that these teams might want to come up and grab, and they might put you in a position to get a really nice deal. So here's the first offer. We're going to go team by team and talk about each offer that they might send you. The New York Jets, this is an interesting one. You would get a lot here, and you'd only have to move down 3 spots. 2 additional fourths, which remember, you have 0 picks in the 4th round as of right now. You are completely out of the draft from the 93rd overall selection to the 207th overall selection. So you'd only move down 3 spots, and you'd add 103. So you'd have 2 picks in 93 and 103, right in that little range, getting you back in there. And then you'd also add 140. So 3 picks in between 93 and 140, along with your additional 4 that you have between 207 and 252. So that's the offer that I think you could end up getting from New York. They move up a couple spots to end up picking their guy. You go back to 16, and that's a great range to take an Omar Cooper, to take a Casey Concepcion. You still get to likely add a solid option at receiver, and you move back 3 spots and end up picking up 2 4th-round picks. I think the next trade that we could look at would be the Dallas Cowboys. You could move down 7 spots here, and of course, you're moving down a little bit or significantly further here. Excuse me, I'll be straight up about it. It's not a little bit down or further down. It is a lot further down to go. 4 extra spots, which in the first round, that's a lot. That's an 1/8 of the entire round, so you got to consider it that way. So you'd be moving down to 20, but you'd be picking up an extra 1/3. So you'd have 92 and 93 now. That's 2 back-to-back picks in the 3rd round. If I ever seen a better trade up spot to go into the 2nd round, move up those 2 spots, go up into the 2nd round some point, that seems like a really great recipe there. And then you'd be able to keep 112 as well. So 3 picks there, 20, 92, 112. You're moving down 7 spots with the Dallas Cowboys. And again, at 20, I don't know if you'd be in range to pick Omar Cooper. Maybe he continues to slide down for you. I don't know if he's getting past the Jets at 16. Maybe they even trade up for him at 13 and force you to take Casey Concepcion. But a Casey Concepcion might be there. You might have some other interesting options. Maybe Jermod McCoy slides down for you and you want to pick up a long-term corner option. I think there's a number of interesting names that would be there for you at 20. And that extra 1/3, plus the ability to maybe trade up into the 2nd for an extra pick, might be tempting for the Rams as well. Here's an interesting one. How about a trade with the other team in LA, the Los Angeles Chargers? You'd be moving down 9 spots to do this. So this is one of the steeper moves down that we've talked about so far, but you pick up an additional 2nd to do it. So it would be 55th overall pick in the 22nd overall pick, for the 13th overall pick. So moving down 9 spots. And I think this would put the Rams in range to, if they wanted to take an offensive lineman as a long-term piece for this team, that's probably a solid spot to do it. Once again, Casey Concepcion might be in range for you, or a sliding Omar Cooper if he's there. So again, similar options. And if I'm the Rams and I really want to take an offensive lineman, if that's what this team is heart set on doing, this or the trade we're about to talk about next are trades that I am really, really thinking about, because I think you might knock yourself out of range for some of the top receivers with these trades, but you wouldn't be knocking yourself out of range for some of the top offensive tackles in this class, who I think could be available later down. This would be the other one. 24th, 70th, and 107 in exchange for 13. If I'm the Rams, this is the offer that looks the tastiest to me, to be completely honest with you. This gets you an additional third and an additional fourth. They're earlier picks than the other offer that we talked about would have offered you. I think this is a really good trade if you're the Rams. Yes, you're moving down 11 spots, so it's the steepest move down in the first round that we've talked about, but not by significant margins. The one we talked about with the Chargers was down to 22. So again, it's 9 spots. This is 11. But you get an extra third that's 23 spots earlier than your existing third. Once again, that feels like a potential recipe to trade up into the second or just stick and pick twice in the third, get 2 good players there, and you're back in the fourth, in the early fourth, the very early fourth, might I add, with the 107th overall pick. This is the one that I would go with, but I want to hear what you think. Make the call for me. Would you take the Jets offer? Give me an NYJ. Would you take the Chargers offer? Give me an LAC. Would you take the Cowboys offer? Give me a DAL. Or would you take the Browns offer? Give me a CLE. And I already said it a little bit, but once again, I would take the offer from Cleveland, guys. This is the deal that I would make. The Chargers offer is a close second. But I really think getting back in the third with an earlier pick in the third, which again, like we talked about, gives you flexibility to trade up into the second, plus having that early fourth round pick would be massively valuable for this Rams team. Would give them a lot more of an arsenal of picks to still do some damage with. Plus, you'd still have that first round pick at the 24th overall selection to maybe pick up that offensive lineman of the future or a sliding receiver if you really go, if one slides down to you. Again, I don't know if Casey Concepcion or Omar Cooper are going to be available in that range, but maybe you could end up going like a Jeremy Bernard. That feels like a little bit early, but a lot of options that you would end up having if you traded down. I think that's the ultimate kind of moral of the story with all of these trade downs is no matter what you do, it gives you additional options and additional draft capital across the draft if you do end up moving down. And if those 5 options that we talked about aren't available for the Rams, that is my preferred path, is to see them accumulate some draft capital, move down a couple spots, and still end up taking a solid player. But could they look to trade up? So we talked about guys might go earlier than you want. Can the Rams live with that happening? Maybe not. Maybe Les Snead and Sean McVay and Tony Pastores are looking at this draft board and they go, there's only a few guys we want and we just have to have them. They could make it happen with a move up the board. Here's what Albert Breer had to say. We talked about this a little bit earlier on today's show as well, but I want to hit it again. After trading for Trent McDuffie, the Rams are working with a lower number of picks than they normally do. So I'd expect General Manager Les Snead and COO Tony Pastores to work the phones to move around some. But at 13, most across the league expect the Rams to take a receiver. Most of the scuttlebutt with other teams connects USC's Mekhi Lemon to the Rams, and I'd buy that in Lemon and Cooper for that matter being their type of receiver. But I'd also bet, based on what I know, that Sean McVay might see a little something in Tyson based on the Rams' affection for Teteroa McMillan last year. The Rams have at least sniffed around on a trade-up. I wouldn't count on it, but ... And then he goes on to talk about the need at corner as well. But I really think what's important here is the Rams have sniffed around on a trade up, but ... He says he wouldn't count on it, but he threw it out there to begin with. And then went on to clarify, he responded to Blaine Grissick of Rams on SI that I am reporting, this is his words, I am reporting that the Rams are exploring a trade up. So hey, it's happening. They have at least had conversations about doing this. I'm not saying that they are going to trade up, but I am telling you they have at least had conversations about doing it. And if I put myself in Les Snead's shoes, I think I'm probably targeting the 6th or 7th overall picks as landing spots to take Carnell Tate or Jeremiah Love if they end up sliding. Those are the 2 players that I could see the Rams valuing high enough to trade up for. And I know Breer alluded to Jordan Tyson. I don't see that one at all, though. I really don't see it with Jordan Tyson at being a player that the Rams value enough to move up the board for. I just think the injury issues combined with the similarity level to a guy like Puka Nacua, whereas Carnell Tate, to me, feels like an exact match for what you are about to lose in Davante Adams, the stylistic void that you're going to have when Davante Adams exits this roster. Carnell Tate feels like he fills that in a heartbeat to me, whereas Jordan Tyson does not at the end of the day, and also comes with myriad injury concerns. But what does moving up look like? We've talked about this a little bit before, but I think this is what you'd have to give up. I was talking to our Commanders host today, Jack Sperry, and we agreed this would probably get the deal done. At least it would get you in the conversation, is what he told me. 7 for 13 and 61. So you're moving off of your second round pick. This would keep you out of the draft until 93rd overall. When we did this, we did a mock draft where we played this out. It is a long time to wait to pick again. It basically prevents you from addressing depth at corner. It prevents you from taking a linebacker to add to this class, or add to this team, excuse me. There's cost here. Absolutely there is. That 61st overall pick can be incredibly valuable for you, especially since you've moved off of 29. You no longer have 2 firsts. But if you want to go get Carnell Tate, or you want to go get Jeremiah Love, if the Rams feel like that's something that moves the needle for this team enough in a year where they are all in, could be worth it. Could absolutely be worth it. Let me hear from you guys. Are you making this deal or not? Let me know in the comments, and that's going to wrap it up for us on today's show. As always, thank you for tuning in, and as always, let's go Rams. I'll see you guys tomorrow.